What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Off the Couch Boxing. I'm your host, Reckless Rex Ruger. This is the Alexis Arguello puppet.
And I'm your other host, Frank Benji's, back with another one.
Yeah, you know that's right. When aren't we back with another one? Always. There's my man. What's up?
What's up, brother, man? How you doing?
JAIDON, it's good to have you in here, man.
It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm glad we got a chance to do this, man. I'm a big fan, and listen, as a fan of the Mafia, I'm also a big fan of any guy that calls himself the Don.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that, brother, man.
Come on, man. I mean, come on. And first of all, I got to ask you, man, usually right off the rip, I like to ask people, and me and Benji's always laugh about this because it always seems to be one or two answers, sometimes even both. How did you get your start in boxing? Usually we hear that either a father pushed them into it or they were getting in a lot of scraps as a kid. Most of the time, it's both.
Exactly. I couldn't say it better myself. It was both. I've always fought a lot as a kid. My dad told me at one point that I couldn't sit in the house. Either I was going to have to get a job or do something. I was 13 years old at the time, so the job thing didn't look too promising, you know. So I saw a sign up about a PAL boxing club, and I went and I fell in love, and the rest is history.
And did you have like did you have that? I know Benji sometimes gets to this question, but did you have anybody, you know, as you were coming up that you kind of like looked up to? You know how we all kind of have that role model, that guy that we want to emulate in the sport?
Well, you know, not necessarily. I looked up to different guys that were pro fighters. One of my favorite fighters of all time, Meldrick Taylor. Another one of my favorite fighters is Vernon Forrest. I got a lot of guys that I looked up to, man. But as far as directly right in front of me, I looked up to Luis Collazo. I looked up to Travis Sims. I looked up to Chad Dawson, who's only a couple of years my senior. I looked up to even Curtis Stevens, man. You know, he got to start before me, a long time before me. So Kid Starks, Gary Starks, and these are all guys I still keep in touch with today. Tarvis Sims, Travis' twin brother. You know, Iman Green, he didn't have the best career, but, you know, he didn't have good management and things like that that stunned him. There was a lot of guys I looked up to, man, coming up, because the way I came up, I was always the lowest guy on the totem pole. I was always younger, and, well, my whole crew was younger. So, you know, I looked up to a lot of guys.
I'll tell you what, it does my heart good. It does my heart good when somebody brings up Vernon Forrest. I love hearing somebody actually say Vernon Forrest.
Oh, yeah.
One of my all-time favorites, man. I love that guy, man.
I can't forget the Flushing Flash.
Yeah. and right, so you're a New York guy, right?
Well, I was born and raised in Connecticut. When I started boxing, I lost my first tournament at 14 years old. From then, I had a cousin that boxed in New York, so my father started sending me out there on weekends because the gym I was with only opened up 2 days a week in Connecticut.
Yeah.
So I would train 3 days in New York, 2 days in Connecticut for a long time before I went full on with New York at 16, 17, and that's where I won my first national title out of as an amateur.
So we always hear, a lot of times we hear one answer at this question, but I'm curious from you. You just started talking about training in different cities and stuff. What's your least favorite part about training camp? If there was one thing you could just not do ever again, what would it be?
Probably at 4.
Yeah. A lot of times you hear road work.
Yeah, nah, listen, man, I'm in my basement right now, my basement gym right now, right?
Yeah.
And that's not an option for me. I do core work, as you can see. I mean, cardio work, as you can see. Can you see it?
Yeah.
This is my basement gym. I got the rower, I got the bike, I got the treadmill.
Damn. You ought to just start charging memberships. You got it all there.
Yeah. So if I do one thing, it's gonna be cardio. That's one thing. My dad used to wake me up at 5 a.m. every morning. So from the time I was 13 years old till now, I can't say I've taken 2 weeks off without running.
Now, what about current guys in the sport? Do you still keep a good eye on the sport? And who are some of the guys that are currently competing that you like?
You know, there's a lot of them, man. I like the kid Hitchens that fought last night.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He's the truth. You know what I'm saying? I'd like to see him sit down a little bit more. He got a pretty solid team behind him. Lenny's a good trainer. I know him personally. I'm looking forward to see what he brings to that table because there's a whole slew of fighters at that weight class, as you know.
Stacked. Yeah.
Who else do I like now? Devin Haney, man. He's like the cleanup guy. He's the one that saves the day. He comes in and fights any and everybody. You know, he's proving that he's proving he belongs there. You got guys like Tank that have explosive power and obviously have tremendous skill, but Devin's the one that's taking the challenges on. He's not ducking anybody. He's willing to make the deal. Yeah. Over and over, we've seen that. We can't forget about that from Devin. You know, I love to see Devin fight and what he represents and how he comes in. And he's an ultimate professional. You know, what other guys do I like to watch nowadays? Teofimo's a showman.
Yeah.
Tremendously skilled and naturally gifted. But Teofimo is like a head case, man. One day it looks like he doesn't want to box. The next day he looks like he's the best guy in the sport.
A little inconsistent. Yeah, you're right.
But Teofimo, if he's focused and he's feeling himself, I would hate for my fighter to be on the other side of the ring.
Yeah, agreed.
So sort of in that same vein, you know, we hear a lot of times it's bandied about who's the face of boxing. Who would that be for you right now? Is it still Canelo?
Absolutely. Regardless how he's running from Benavidez, when you look at notoriety, when you look at purse gates and things like that, you have to put him first. You know, when we're talking about financial and notoriety, you know, you have to think, you probably tank right behind him. You can't really count heavyweights because that's the cheat code, right? You can't count Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder because they always put more asses in seats just because they're big punchers at heavyweight.
Yeah,
I'm not counting. I'm not counting them. But you know, you have the Bivol and the Beterbiev fight coming up, man, and I can't wait to see what happens with those two. You know, I would have to pick Beterbiev just because Bivol is easy to hit.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm sorry, Beterbiev is easier to hit, and I feel like Bivol is a better, complete, all-around fighter. We've seen Beterbiev in trouble. We've heard stories on him get knocked down in sparring, but we've never heard anything like that with Bivol.
Yeah.
I'm waiting to see how those two guys get in the ring and test each other in June. And you know what? Hopefully I can be there for that fight.
Something very interesting that's been circulating around today. You brought up earlier the Hitchens fight last night, and at one point in between rounds, they went over and spoke at ringside to David Benavidez, and apparently he took to social media today and apologized because he had had a few drinks and was a little inebriated. Is that something he needs to apologize for?
Absolutely not. If he needs to apologize to anybody, maybe his team for a lack of embarrassment, but you know, Benavidez is no stranger to alcohol. You know,
right.
His days are numbered because of that. And that's probably what Canelo's waiting for. You know, the Benavidez destruction, because before Canelo loses to him, maybe he wants Benavidez to beat himself a little bit, so it'll be a bit easier. Yeah, if that's his plan, it's a shame, but I get it. You know, it wouldn't be the first time it's been done. I think that he doesn't owe anybody an apology, but at the same time, I think he owes the sport more. You know, he's one of the best fighters in the game right now. He's proved himself time and time again. I think he has 3 belts and mandatory for Canelo, who's running across town to duck him.
Yep.
And, you know, I don't think he owes anybody an apology but himself again, because, you know, once you get to a certain level, you owe yourself to give yourself your all. You know what I mean? And you don't want to have what if.
Right.
When it's all said and done.
Yeah. Yeah. Now you did season 3 of The Contender. And a lot of people, well, at least I'd read in some articles though, that people were surprised that you continued on in the competition because your father did pass away during the competition. Do you feel like, you know, when you look back on that decision, you know, that affected the outcome of it?
Absolutely. When I went and fought Sakio, every fight I fought after that, I fought with aggression. I felt like, you know, I was raised by the age of 13 on from my dad. So, my dad's son, he raised me. So it's like, I felt like the pain I felt from him passing away, no man can put the same type of pain on me. So because of that, that was my way of keep going on. But at the same time, I was full of aggression. I fought the wrong way, especially from Saki Obika. Instead of outboxing him, I met him head on, and I felt like those were some bad decisions. But you know what? If I didn't do it, and I went to my dad's funeral, because I did miss his funeral, and I was around my family, I would have probably been kicking myself in the ass for the rest of my life for not going. So it's one of those double-edged swords to where like, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
Right. So I got to ask you, were there any fights in your career that you really wanted, or that you wanted to see your team pursue that didn't come to fruition? Was there that one fight out there that you feel like got away that you wanted in your heart?
You know what? The Saki Obika rematch. HBO gave us an offer after it was done. Well, the offer was on the table. I'm not sure what it was. And after that fight, there were some things that transpired in my personal life and in the ring and out the ring, and things never came to fruition. After the Contender, my father died, and I bought a house, and I got them silk sheets, and I didn't wake up at 5 anymore. Now it's 8:00 in the morning, things like that. Things kind of changed. And, not long after, I got on the job and became a police officer with the Atlanta Police Department. Things kind of took a change, but I'm happy for the change because, boxing is not who I am. It's just what I did,
Right.
And I feel like life is too long to put all your eggs in one basket, even though that basket could have been a lot fuller than it is now.
Sure.
It's about quality of life at some point.
Yeah.
And, at that level, losing to Saki Obika and Alan Green, I felt like boxing a young man's sport, and I was 23 at the time. And I felt like this isn't basketball. You can't continue to chase this dream and expect to have good mental health or be mentally cognitive, if you understand what I'm saying.
Sure. Yeah.
So, once you don't pass that level, you can either keep fighting to get to that level, or you can move on and pursue another career. And that's what I decided to do because, you know what? I gave a good portion of my life to boxing. I was talking to my buddy Andre Durrell not too long ago about this. And I asked him if he wanted to be a trainer. And he said, yeah, I train people, but I won't be a coach. I said, why not? He said, Jay, I gave boxing way too much of my life. I said, I get it. And I finished his sentence. I said the same thing. And he started before me and ended after me. So I overstood him. I said, I took a lot of my life and replaced it with boxing, training, fighting, and missed a lot of opportunities and dances and parties and vacations and so on and so forth. And I said, that's one thing for me, but now that I have kids, I'm not going to give boxing my kid's life.
Right. And you don't get that time back, too.
No. Nobody's ever on their deathbed and say, I wish I would have took that fight. No, they say, I wish I would have had more time with my family. I wish I would have enjoyed my life more. I wish I would have had more fun. I wish I would have joked more and forgave people. Nobody says, I wish I would have got the Alan Green rematch.
Right.
I gotta say, I haven't heard that sentiment since Monty Barrett.
Yeah,
another guy that comes from my gym, Monty Barrett, a good friend of mine.
Yeah, we had him on. He's a great guy. Yeah, and he kind of said that too. Kind of like that whole, stop and smell the roses. You know what I mean? Like, don't let the train pass you by.
Let me tell you something. Monty was one guy from my gym that I never got to spar with.
Yeah,
and you know what? Looking back, I was a cocky kid and I was full of myself as a fighter, as you should be. And I did really well with a lot of people, like the Daniel Judas and the what's the crew? O'Neal Bells and I did really well with heavier guys. And I never understood why my trainer would never let me spar with Monty, but Monty's a different animal. He's a partner.
Yeah, he is.
And I think they might have. I was 168 at the time. I think they probably saved me from something.
Yeah, he's a legitimate heavyweight. Yeah, he is.
So I would have done the same thing with my fight. No, you're not getting in with that guy. Stop.
But the nicest guy ever, a real sweetheart.
Oh yeah, God-fearing man. I respect him a whole lot. And, you know, he's a good dude.
I'm curious to ask you what your opinions are on like the Jake Paul gimmick fights.
You know what? First things first. That's the only fight I would ever come out of retirement for.
To fight Jake?
Absolutely.
Why not? You know you're going to make a lot of money.
You heard it here first, Jake, on Off the Couch Boxing.
Yeah, and I'm literally off the couch. All I do is run. That's the only workout I've ever done. I haven't put on a boxing glove in 10 years. So
and
I would love to get that fight.
Couch. That's why we call it Off the Couch, because we wish we were off it.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm not even going to say what would happen in that fight. I would just love to fight in a spirit of boxing to try to shut up the face of the so-called boxing. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, I have a great deal of respect for Jake because he's giving a lot of fighters opportunities to make a lot more money than they ever would have.
Sure.
He's promoting shows. And you know what? I can't be mad at that. You know, you can't be mad at that man for not only using his celebrity to make money, but using his celebrity to make other people money. So I got a great deal of respect for Jake Paul. I salute my hat to him. And all I say is to him is try to fight a couple real fighters. Every fight doesn't have to be a gimmick.
Yeah.
If you want to be a real fighter. Now, if you don't want to be a real fighter, say that.
Yeah.
Do you think it's a bit of regression to fight Mike Tyson, like being that he's sort of started to step into the real boxing and now he's kind of going back to some BS?
I mean, I never really seen him in the real fight. I mean, what fight did he fight a real boxer?
He's fought a couple of real boxers recently, but, you know, it's kind of tongue-in-cheek. These guys are, like, very, very low in the box rec world. I don't know where they found these guys,
like
but, I mean.
Like the guy's like an Amazon driver, and then he boxed.
Yeah, right.
Hey, man, well, listen, I would love to fight him, but, you know, I feel like he's going back into the sideshow world because, obviously, Mike. I feel like Mike's damn near 60. You know, he doesn't belong in the ring, but if that's what he does, every man has his choice.
Yeah.
You know, surprisingly, I still think Mike has a chance if they take it serious. But I hope they just go in there, display a talent like him and Roy did, have fun, put it on for the viewers so we can enjoy some old school Mike and just get a rise and a thrill out of the fight and Mike being in the ring again.
But I am reading between the lines here, man, and from what I'm discerning here, champ, is that we might see CODRINGTON versus Paul. This would not be bad.
Hey, man, if it happens, I'll give you a nice little percentage.
Wow. Thanks. That's the kind of sponsorship we need on this show.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. I would love to fight Paul, but realistically, you know, I'm known as a puncher, and the punch never goes with a guy, and the last thing he wants to do is be in there with a real fighter who can actually punch. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So what's life after boxing been like for you? Like for a while you had Team Havoc and you had the 2 gyms. Is that still going on?
No, I'm actually, believe it or not, I just actually retired from the Atlanta Police Department. You know, right now I'm doing some personal endeavors with parking enforcement companies. I'm just getting along in business a little bit differently. And, you know, I started a security company. So I have a lot going on now. You know, I have 2 kids, a wife, the same wife I had when I was on the Contender, when I was coming up in the game. And, you know, my son plays baseball. My daughter does gymnastics, and they both swim. So life's full of and you know, I do a lot of running around, and you know, I couldn't ask for more, man. And you know, I wouldn't want to be in a different position than I am now.
So you go from boxing. So you go from boxing to being a police officer. So you just like the element of danger.
Yeah, the funny thing about it is, for 15 years, I worked in the Atlanta PAL community. So I trained fighters, amateur fighters, for the Atlanta PAL for 15 years, and that's what I did. So it was my way to give back as a sworn police officer. So it was my way to give back until some things happened and I had to make a choice and had to make some changes because, again, I'm not going to give boxing my kids' life, right? So you get to a point where kids start to get good and you're traveling all over the country for nationals and things like that. And it was just like deja vu for me again. My kids are at home. I'm missing them. They're missing this. I'm missing that recital. So I had to make a choice.
Do you think I'm not going to get like crazy political here or anything, but do you think that it's a weird political and social climate right now to be a police officer, especially in a big city?
Absolutely. You know, I got arrested for driving on suspended license, and I told myself, and that officer treated me like shit. And I said to myself, if I ever get the opportunity, I'm going to get on the job and show how it's supposed to be done.
Yeah.
So one side of that is I worked through the 2020 riots in Atlanta, which was mayhem, you know, and, you know, I have Caucasian people, you know, shouting at me, saying, hands up, don't shoot, and things like that. I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? You know, I got a job to help people, you know.
Right.
I didn't get on this job to bring anybody to jail, so on and so forth. But I think a lot of it is propaganda from the mainstream media. I think that certain people want I think a certain group of people want the poor to look at law enforcement in order in a certain way so that they can keep a certain demographic of a vote.
Yeah.
I feel like it's funny how somebody could be Mike Tyson's best friend and Don King's best friend and party with Puff Daddy and these people, and you know, 2 years later he's considered racist. I'm not saying any names.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not saying these people are good or bad, because obviously, you know, in order to claim these things, you can't be the best person in the world. But certainly I think mainstream media plays a big portion of propaganda in the way things are socially. You know, they want to give a certain demographic of people enough to stay broke and keep their vote.
Yep.
And the elite really aren't worried about much because they're good anyway.
Right.
I'll tell you what I think is the most terrifying thing to the government, and quote me if I'm wrong, but like the backwoods white redneck folk and the inner city African American folk, if they were like this, that's why they want that divide, because those are some of the scariest people in the world.
You know what the funny thing about that is? The government panders on emotion, right? And they get these two groups of people to vote off of emotion. Black people, Trump's racist. He said this, he said that. But what about Biden? He said he doesn't want his kids in a school with a racial jungle of black people. He said he's the one that created the '93 crime bill that Bill Clinton signed, and you know, I can go on for days. And you know, they play off of fear, and they fearmonger us into voting, not because we want somebody to be in office, because obviously Joe Biden's not the favorite president in the U.S. history or anywhere near it, but they're pandering off of the fear of, if Trump gets in office, it's going to be World War III. It's going to be this. That's what they. I don't understand it, how people go for that, but you know. And again, I'm not saying Trump's the way. I'm not saying Trump's the way to go. But what I'm saying is, if you don't vote for him, those shouldn't be the reasons why you don't vote.
Good point. Yeah, I agree with you. And so, you know, getting back to the law enforcement thing, is there a certain point in history where you think people suddenly lost this respect for police officers? Because irregardless, even I remember being a kid. I'm 51 years old. But I remember, no matter how you felt about the police, you still had a healthy fear of them. You would never think to actually confront them or to blatantly like to disobey them. You know, you worked in law enforcement. Where do you think that disconnect started?
I'll tell you what. It was always there under the surface. But I know when I got sworn in 2008, I was going to the inner city. I worked in the inner city of Atlanta, and I'd go to people's cookouts in the projects, in the apartment complexes. They would feed me. We all got along. And suddenly it seemed like around the 2020 riots, when a lot of different things happened, those same people are throwing eggs at my car. So if I had to say a certain time that most of the opinions about law enforcement changed, I would have to say around then. You know what the funny thing about it was? Again, that wasn't even created by black folk. That was created by Antifa.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, great point. Great point. I know. And then here we are in the 21st century, like literally seeing police like literally murdering somebody in the street. It's crazy.
It's always happened. We have social networks to show what's happening now. That's the only difference.
Right. Right. There's a spotlight on it now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Not only a spotlight, but a camera, phone, and a social media page, and so on and so forth.
Everybody's a reporter out there.
Yeah. You got Ring doorbells. It's insane. Not to say it shouldn't be like that, but what I'm saying is you can't get away with anything these days.
Nope.
My wife and I argue about how let my kids go around the corner and play. She's like, times aren't the same as when we were kids and we could go out and play. I said, they're better. There were no camera phones. There were no Ring doorbells. What are you talking about?
Right.
They have a freaking tracker on their wrist.
Traffic cams. Yeah, there's cameras everywhere.
Yeah, it's like, what are you talking about? Let them
Everything is surveilled. Yeah.
We went out there, no phones, no cameras, no nothing. And your mom just told you to be back by dark.
Yep, I remember those days. Yep.
In a whole nother country. As long as we were back by dark, no problem.
You're right. As I like to refer to it, the good old days.
Yeah.
Well, listen.
I want to ask him before he gets out of here. You know, your Mount Rushmore of boxers.
Okay. First thing first, you got to put Ali.
Yes.
The greatest that ever did it.
No doubt.
A lot of people say for what he did outside of the ring, but I'm going to say for what he did inside the ring.
Yeah.
Okay. You got to put Sugar Ray up there.
Yep. Which one? Robinson?
My favorite Ricky Frazier would kill me, but I'm talking about Leonard.
Yeah. I would be too.
I like both. I like both on the Mount
Me too, but you can only pick one. You only get 4 of them.
Both up there.
So we got Muhammad.
Sugar Ray.
We got Sugar Ray. We got, let me see here. I'm going to go for an off-the-wall, my favorite. One of my favorites, I'm going to go Terry Norris, who meant a lot to me.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. And right, this is subjective. This is your Mount Rushmore. Absolutely.
I'm going to go Terry Norris. In number 4, I probably have to go with Floyd.
Yeah.
I respect it.
He kind of has to be on there. He does, especially for what he's done in the sport, but also in business as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But more of what he's done in the sport, man, to go undefeated, what was he, 50-0?
Yeah.
And not only that, he's a guy that would have a controversial fight and come back and blow you out.
Yeah, that's true.
Controversial what?
Yeah, I know, right?
I'm sorry, I fell asleep last fight. Let me show you how it's done this fight.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and he did do that a lot. I spent a lot of money buying Floyd pay-per-views, and I don't want to say hoping to see him lose, but wanting to beat, because I figured, wow, this is going to be historical when this guy loses.
I mean, people felt the same way about Ali. They didn't really appreciate him until '96 when he was on the podium in Atlanta shaking with the torch.
Yep, I know.
Prior to that, they wanted to see him lose. They bought fights to see him lose, just like you were just talking about.
Yep. I know how the mighty have fallen.
Yeah, man.
I know. I don't think we're ever going to see fighters like that again, man. They're just cut from a different cloth in that era.
You know what? That's why you got to respect certain fighters like a Benavidez and like a Devin Haney and like the Shakurs that want to fight everybody, regardless of the fact that people don't want to fight them.
Right.
You got to respect that they're bringing on all challenges.
Yeah.
And regardless of the style of fighting, they're willing to get in there and fight. Now, if Shakur has a certain style of fighting, and another individual have a different style of fighting, and usually relentless and aggressive, and the fight's a stinker because you get in there with Shakur, and it's just, and you weren't relentless and aggressive. You can't be mad at Shakur. He said shoot it himself. Right.
He's fighting. Yeah, he's doing him. Yeah, he's fighting his style. Yeah.
You know, you can't get mad at Floyd because he outboxed the guy and the guy didn't want to commit.
Right. Yeah. That's why they always say, right? Styles make fights. Yeah. Styles make fights. I mean, that's probably the truest thing anybody's ever said in boxing. Styles do make fights, you know?
Yes, they do. All the time.
I'm glad we got a chance to do this, JAIDON, and I got to ask, man, I hope you'll stay in touch, man. We'd love to have you back on from time to time.
It will be my pleasure, man. I would love to come on and talk with you all, whether it be with other people or with myself, I would love to share the experience with you all, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely, man. We love you, man, and it's great to see you doing so good. And the life after the sport is treating you so good, man. And we really appreciate it. We appreciate you being a friend of the show, man.
My pleasure. I have one message for all the young fighters out there.
Please.
The harder you work, the luckier you get.
Words of wisdom, kids. Words of wisdom. Listen to old Uncle Jaden. JAIDON. JAIDON. I want to accentuate the Don part, man. Mafioso style.
Absolutely.
It's been great talking to you, man. We really appreciate you, man. Thanks for doing this, man.
My pleasure. We'll be in touch soon, man.
Absolutely. I got your number. We'll stay in touch. Appreciate you, man.
My pleasure. Thanks a lot.
All right. Good night, champ.
All right.
JAIDON CODRINGTON. Right there, folks. The Don.
Listen, the time is crunching, so I just got to shout out JAIDON CODRINGTON and say thanks for coming on. And I also got to say shout out Gary Busey, because I can go 15 seconds with anything.
Make sure you like and follow us on Facebook. Make sure you like, subscribe, and crush that notification bell. And remember, if you want to be a champion, and yes, thank you to JAIDON, the Don CODRINGTON. If you want to be a champion, remember to roll with the champ.